we're going to be able to look at the Downey CSL vision and mission today during our talk. And we're going to be able to make the tie-in and make the loop with our talk today. Today, our weekly title is We Hold These Truths. Over the year in 2021, we've been looking at timeless wisdom and evolutionary vision. And for the month of July, we're actually looking at pulled by vision. Pulled by vision. And, you know, there's a saying, it's better to be pulled by the vision. And if you can just imagine something just like pulling you or grabbing your hand and pulling you and leading you, pulled by vision, that's better than being pushed by the pain. So I don't know if you want pain to push you, but I would rather be pulled by a vision. And we've talked about vision this year already. So we have an opportunity to revisit it from a different perspective, from the perspective of revisioning and really fine-tuning and refining our vision and refining these things that we hold as truths. Now, as we look at we hold these truths, I'm reminded that this line comes from our Declaration of Independence, and that is here in the United States of America. And that Declaration of Independence has that famous line that is repeated over and over again. And as you look, it was signed on July the 4th, 1776, and today just so happens to be July 4th, 2021. So that was a long, long time ago, but it is the anniversary of this Declaration of Independence. Now, this Declaration of Independence says we hold these truths to be self-evident, meaning they don't need any proof. The proof is already there. That all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I will share with you that, endowed means you're born with it. It means that it is yours, that it is a part of who you are, that we're endowed. I was looking up the word unalienable, which is another word for inalienable, which means that you cannot be separated from it. And I was also thinking about the time in which this was written, because our talk title today is We Hold These Truths. Now, if we're going to be honest about the history of the United States of America, we get to recognize that this was a time of great turmoil, that when this Declaration of Independence was signed and was talked about, it was really about who was going to benefit from the land that belonged to the native people. Was it going to be King George, or was it going to be those who colonized those 13 states? Either way, the land did not belong to either one, but it was really a battle of independence as to who was going to have the right to this land that we now know as the United States. It's also interesting to note that I usually don't do talks on holidays. And that for me has been because I bring a different perspective that sometimes is not the perspective of mainstream. And today it was just like, I've had enough. We get to actually talk truth, and we get to talk turkey, and we get to actually know some truth, and we get to hold these truths in a way that we've never held them before. You know, the truth is that when it said all men are created equal, it did not include women. It did not include the indigenous people, and it did not include the Africans, which were enslaved by those who colonized this country. So as we celebrate today, the 4th of July, as a day of independence, what I am asking for is I'm asking for you to be critical thinkers and for you to actually recognize, are we really free? Are we really independent? Are we independent thinkers? And this is really about revisioning. So yes, that was probably a great and amazing place in which to start, but wait, we cannot stop there. You know, as we can see by the unrest in our world, by the call for equality, that the Declaration of Independence was a place to start, but is not the place where we end. And so what I am offering instead is that we start from there, but that we actually begin to take a look at something a little bit different. You know, Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind book says, in our ignorance of the truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions we suffer from. So our ignorance, Michael Beckwith taught me that that word ignorance does not mean stupid. It means ignorance. When we ignore the truth, when we don't search and we just take things at face value. When I tell you, or when I share with you, or when you hear that God is within, you could either check it out for yourself and try it on for yourself and recognize this power, this indwelling power and presence, or you could just take it at face value. You could believe it or not believe it. But this is exactly what we're talking about, that when we ignore the truth, that we are misusing this power and presence, and that this power and presence is really where our freedom lies, where we can really begin to live freely, where we begin to see that truly all life is the life of God, and that there's a power and a presence and a life, and that life is God. And that life has created everything out of itself. Therefore, my life is the life of God. Your life is the life of God. All life is God expressing beautifully and magnificently. And therein is our independence. When we begin to see the unity of all life, that thing that animates me, that lives me, that is breathing me right now is the same exact power and presence that is right where you are. When we begin to see the unity of all life, that is indeed when we begin to experience the freedom. And that is indeed where we can, as the Declaration of Independence says, we have the life, the liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that we are at liberty, that we are free. You know, I'm going to invite us to take on some declarations, if you will, of our own. Howard Thurman says that there is no alternative to the insistence that we cannot escape from our personal responsibility for the social order in which we live. This means that there must be participation in the social process, and that quite specifically. So in other words, when we see injustice, as we did early on, it doesn't mean that we turn a blind eye to it. What it means is we begin to do our inner work. We begin to see that indeed all of humanity is the life of God. and that we begin to, through our spiritual awareness and through this social process, take on the personal responsibility of awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence. And this is the truth that I'm talking about. Let us begin to hold these truths, and this is the invitation. Centers for Spiritual Living on a global level, here's our vision, mission, and purpose. A world that works for everyone. Wow. I think that the Declaration of Independence was headed somewhere. It was, but we stopped too short. It wasn't inclusive. And yet, here is a way right now that we have our vision, that we can actually be pulled by this vision. And that vision is a world that works for everyone. Now, what does a world that works for everyone look like? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? How do I wear that garment of a world that works for everyone? You know, and when I think about a world that works for everyone, I see a world where people are fed. I see a world where folks are housed. I see a world where we're taking care of our planet. I see a world that even if we had quote unquote borders, the borders that just say you're in this land, you're in that land, you're in the other land, that the value of the diversity is high, and that we appreciate the diversity. That difference doesn't mean bad, but that difference means beauty. It gives us something else to experience, but that those borders are free borders to simply cross and to enjoy one another, to enjoy one another's cultures and backgrounds. That's, for me, a world that works for all, a world that works for everyone. And our mission at Centers for Spiritual Living is to provide spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. And that's what we get an opportunity to do. We have this opportunity to provide these spiritual tools. And that's what happens on Sundays. That's what happens in our classes. And they're not just for our personal transformation, but for global transformation, because what I know is that when it happens for one, it happens for all. When a record can be broken, in other words, like in the Olympics, when that record is shattered and broken, others awaken and go, wow, it is possible. When that plane landed in the Hudson River after the birds got in the engine and it landed safely, wow, it opened up the imagination and the concept and the idea that if it works there, it can work more often than it had. And our purpose is to awaken humanity to its spiritual magnificence. In other words, right where you are magnificent because you are the life of God. And imagine our world, one person at a time, awakening to their spiritual magnificence, to know that this power and this presence lives in, through, and as me. I don't know about you, but this stuff excites me. I want to be pulled by this vision. I want this vision to pull me into a living and into a breathing and into a way of being that supports this vision, mission, and purpose. It also supports our vision, mission, and purpose, that by valuing and empowering all, we inspire a joyous and fulfilling life. This is the kind of independence that I'm talking about. This is our new 4th of July. This is the new independence that we're talking about, that includes all people and does not deny anyone. Now, when we think about even what we believe, Ernest Holmes talked about it. And I just want to highlight 3 of the things that he wrote about in what we believe. Now, we believe that the ultimate goal of life is to be a complete emancipation from all discord of every nature. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. And we believe in the individualization of the spirit in us, and that all people are the individualizations of the one spirit. You know, this is indeed something to celebrate. This is indeed being pulled by the vision. This is indeed having that we hold these truths. These are the truths that I'm inviting us to really consider, to really look at, to really revision what the founding fathers jotted down and signed off on way back when, July 4th of 1776. I'm inviting us to revision and make that broader than what that was at that time. I'm inviting us to really find freedom and independence from all discord. And the only way that we're going to do that is by engaging in spiritual practice, by engaging in spiritual practice that brings us back to recognizing that there's one power, one presence, one God, one life, and that life, all powerful, all present, all knowing, right? Omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, that power and presence created everything out of itself. Like, we get to hang out and contemplate in quiet time the allness that has created everything. And because it has created everything, it has created me, it has created you. And when I recognize that, when I am in a contemplation and I'm beginning to recognize the awe and the oneness of all life, then I can no longer hurt or harm you or deny you of your unalienable rights. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. As a matter of fact, because I recognize that, we provide each other with the loving support and the spiritual tools for the personal transformation and the global transformation, that we might awaken to this knowing. Because when we awaken to this knowing, what we recognize is the unity of all life, that I am your other you, and that you are my other me. And that when I hurt you, I hurt me. And when you hurt me, you're hurting yourself. That there's really the one. The vision that is pulling us is a world that works for everyone. And some of us, like Dr. King, who had a dream and who had a vision and who said, I might not get there with you, but I see this and I hold this and I know this. Are we able to do that for one another? Are we able, through our meditation, through our prayer, through our giving, through our visioning practice, through our visualization, are we now able to hold these truths, if not for ourselves, for the generations to come? Beloved, I want to ask you, what are the truths that you're holding to be self-evident? Are you so enthralled in the news and in doom and gloom that those are the truths that you're holding on to? Are you holding on to the truths of there's not enough? Are you in scarcity consciousness? Are you thinking that, the world is going to hell in a handbasket? Are those the truths that you're holding on to? Because if they are, welcome. You are welcomed here. You're welcomed here and invited to try on something new, to begin to turn off that television set with the news of doom and gloom, and to begin to tell a vision. Here we are telling a vision of a world that works for everyone. The new television is the vision that we see a world that works for everyone, that by valuing and empowering all, we inspire a joyous and fulfilling life. And the way there is through our spiritual practice, by telling a vision, being pulled by the vision, sitting down, turning off that television and meditating, just getting quiet, or even contemplating the awe and the beauty of life. Moving into a practice of gratitude. Hello. If you are on Zoom or Facebook today, you have a long laundry list of what to be grateful for. You know, not just the basics, you know, that I can breathe and that I can move, but that I even have internet, or that I have the wherewithal to manage these things. Wow. The spiritual practice of gratitude, of appreciation, you know, because what you appreciate appreciates. And to the degree in which you continue to hold the world or world vision of doom and gloom, that will appreciate too. It'll continue to grow and grow and grow if that's what you continue to bring your focus to. And so it is important for us, each of us, to begin to dive into our individual practice, because our individual practice then becomes the collective practice. The collective practice becomes the global practice and a global consciousness. When I think about race consciousness today, we can simply shift that consciousness to global consciousness. We can simply begin to shift and know that we are global citizens. We can begin to shift and recognize that what the founding fathers envisioned could be improved upon. And that's what we get an opportunity to do today. We get an opportunity to improve upon what was started. And guess what? In years to come, we're going to be looked at as the founding parents, if you will, of this consciousness. And folks are going to go, wow, they were so limited. and there's going to be something else in consciousness arising and coming forth. You know, as we eliminate racism and sexism, as we eliminate homophobia, as we eliminate food scarcity, as we eliminate homelessness, as we begin to also become so inclusive of folks with gender pronouns and how folks identify. Those are the things that we're facing now that our founding parents did not have to deal with at that time. And if they did, it was like, we're not dealing with that. This is about what we're going to do right now. But we are awakening. And as we awaken, we set the platform and the groundwork for more awakening. This is what we mean by the evolutionary vision. And it's all based in our ancient and timeless wisdom. The question is are you going to be celebrating this 4th of July with an old consciousness or a new consciousness, a new awareness, with an updated version of we hold these truths to be self-evident? I'm inviting us to dump mediocrity. I'm inviting us not to settle for status quo. I'm inviting us to step into the light, as we sung about earlier, to step into the love. I'm inviting us to step up and not fall for the okie doke anymore, but to stand in our own brand of consciousness, recognizing that all life is one life, that it is the life of God, and that when we are emancipated from all discord, it is then that we can absolutely, truly, truly celebrate freedom. Emancipation means freedom from all discord, and it starts with me. It starts with me. there's some question as to where this originated from. Right now, it is attributed to Malcolm X, but it says, when I becomes we, even illness becomes wellness. When I becomes we, even illness becomes wellness. I'm inviting us to let go of the illness of racism and sexism and homophobia and all forms of oppression and all forms of discord, as Ernest Holmes put it. I'm inviting us to really begin to focus on the wellness when we're all free. I remember one of my friends, it was back in the day where same gender loving couples were not allowed to be married and where marriage equality did not exist. And him and his fiance were so in love and they wanted to get married. But they did something that others were just not ready to do. They took an oath and said, until all people can be married, we will not be married. We're not going to exercise that privilege, that unearned privilege. And don't you know, they took that stand. And then one day here in the US, they were able to be married because of the Marriage Equality Act, where all people were able to be married. And so I'm inviting us to take those stands as well. I'm inviting us to see where all people are not free, where people don't have the same rights. I'm inviting us to have our own individual come to Jesus moment where we can be free from all discord, and that we recognize that we're not free until we are all free. So on this day of independence, I'm holding the vision. I'm holding the vision, right? I'm holding these truths that indeed all life is the life of God. And I'm going to begin with me to remember that, and then to treat each and every person whom I come into contact with that reverence, with that dignity, and with that divinity. And I invite you to do the same as we celebrate this day. It is so, and so it is.